My name is Sean. This happened to me a few years back. I was 26. My job was repossession clearance. When someone stops paying their mortgage and the bank finally gets the courts to throw them out, my company sends me in first. I change the locks, document the property, flag anything dangerous before the cleanup crews arrive. You're basically walking through the worst year of someone's life, exactly as they left it. And I must tell you this, it happened to me every time. I always got this weird, messed up feeling in the houses I was paid to go into, like someone had just been there. The air felt wrong. Something was off, but I could never point to what. It crept into my head every single time. Remember, these were houses that had been closed for a long time. You'd call them abandoned houses. Nobody in them for months sometimes. I always ignored my gut. Told myself it was the job getting to me. Told myself my brain was just playing tricks. I was wrong, and I found that out the hard way. I still remember it to this day. November 2022. A dead-end street in South London called Cranleigh Gardens. That day I didn't want to be there. Not because something felt off. I just needed to be somewhere else. My girlfriend Sarah had been frustrated with me all week. 3 late nights in a row, and her dad's birthday dinner was that evening. She texted me while I was sitting outside in the van trying to get the heater going. "Sean, don't be late tonight. Mum's made a massive effort and Dad will be annoyed if we're sitting down after 8. I texted back, "One last property, quick lock change, out by 5, see you at 6. That was my mistake. I was rushing. And when you rush this job, you stop paying attention to the things that matter. The property belonged to a man named Arthur Vance, self-employed electrician. His wife had died of cancer 2 years before. After that, he just stopped paying the mortgage, stopped answering the door, eventually disappeared. Nobody on the street had seen him in 6 months. The council had already boarded the ground floor windows because kids had smashed the glass. I got there at 3:30, mid-November, so barely any daylight left. Grabbed my kit, drill, replacement locks, LED torch, clipboard, and walked up the driveway through wet brambles that soaked straight through my work trousers. Went round the back to the kitchen door, cheap UPVC lock, drilled it out, popped the mechanism, pushed it open. The smell hit me straight away. Mold, sour milk, old grease. The smell of a place that's been shut up for months with nobody home. Torch on, electricity long gone, that deep cold that gets into brick walls when a boiler hasn't run all winter. I could see my own breath in the torchlight. I moved fast because I was watching the clock. Kitchen first. Green mold on a loaf of bread on the counter, a coffee mug with the liquid completely dried to a black crust at the bottom, a calendar on the wall still showing April. I scribbled it all down on my clipboard and moved through to the living room. TV still on the stand. Sofa, white mold patches on the fabric from the damp coming off the walls. Then my torch hit the mantelpiece. Photos. A woman, mid-40s, kind-looking face. A younger man next to her, early 20s, probably Arthur's son. Just normal family photos. Except in every single one, the son's face had been scratched out. Not scribbled over with a pen. Scratched out with something sharp, a knife or a compass point, dragged hard enough to tear right through the photo paper and gouge into the wall underneath. Every single photo. Same thing. Every one. I stood there looking at them for longer than I should have. My phone buzzed. Sarah. "Are you on your way yet?" I put my phone back in my pocket and headed for the stairs. The stair carpet was standard beige, nothing unusual about it. But as I put my foot on the first step, I noticed something along the right side, tight against the skirting board, a clean track worn into the dust. Not random scuffing from normal use. A deliberate line running all the way up, like something heavy had been dragged up and down those stairs regularly. Over and over again. I stood there looking at it for a second. Then I told myself it was old. Could be anything. I started climbing. 3 steps from the top landing, I heard it.
Thunk, thunk, thunk.
Slow, rhythmic, metallic, coming from somewhere behind one of the closed doors above me. I want to be straight with you about what I felt in that moment. It wasn't like in films where everything goes dramatic. It was just, my stomach dropped, mouth went dry. That was it. Because in this job, your real fear isn't something supernatural. Your real fear is squatters, people sleeping rough in empty properties, using them to take drugs. People who don't want to be found and who panic when you find them. That's what goes through your head. I stopped on the stairs. Hello? My voice came out thin, smaller than I wanted it to. Asset management. Property's been repossessed. You need to leave the premises. The thunking stopped immediately. Complete silence. And I know this sounds like nothing, but there's a difference between an empty house being silent and a house being silent because someone in it just stopped moving and is now listening to you. I don't know how to explain that difference, but I felt it standing on those stairs. I stood there for a good 30 seconds, holding my drill in my hand, genuinely thinking about just turning around and walking out. And I'll tell you exactly why I didn't. If I walked off-site without completing the inventory, I'd lose the call-out fee for the job. 40 quid. That's the reason. Not bravery, not professionalism. 40 quid, and not wanting to have that conversation with my manager, Dave. That's why I went up. I pushed open the master bedroom door. Bare mattress on the floor, wardrobe hanging open, clothes everywhere. I swept the torch around. Empty. Box room next. Probably the son's old room at some point. Window looking out over the back garden. Empty. Bathroom. Mold on the grout. Empty tub. Nothing behind the shower curtain. Empty. The whole upper floor was clear. But whatever that feeling was, that wrong feeling I'd had since I walked through the kitchen door, it hadn't moved. It was still sitting right there in the air around me. Last thing on my checklist was the attic hatch. Standard check on every job. Banks are paranoid about loft spaces because people bypass the mains electricity to run cannabis grows up there, and it destroys the timber frame. You always check. The hatch was just a plain square of painted plywood set flush into the landing ceiling. No drop-down ladder, nothing like that, just the board. I dragged a heavy wooden chair out of the master bedroom and positioned it on the landing directly underneath. Climbed up, reached up with both hands and pushed. It didn't move. I pushed harder. Put my shoulder into it properly this time. It gave with a loud crack and lifted about 2 inches. And a load of old fiberglass insulation, dead wood lice and thick grey dust dropped straight down into my face. I pulled back, coughing, blinking it out of my eyes. Then I tilted the torch up through the gap. The beam landed on something straight away, a padlock, heavy iron Yale padlock, screwed into a metal hasp that had been fitted on the inside of the attic hatch, holding it shut from above. I just stared at it. I need you to understand why this was wrong. If you want to stop people getting into your loft, you fit the padlock on the outside, on the landing side of the hatch. That's how it works. This one was on the inside, which meant someone had gone up into that loft space, pulled the hatch shut above them, and locked it from inside. Arthur Vance was gone. The house was empty. Had been for months. I was still staring at the padlock, trying to process it when I smelled it. Mint. Clean, fresh mint. Like toothpaste. Coming up through that 2-inch gap from the darkness above me. And then someone took a slow breath through their nose. Right there. right on the other side of that board. I'm telling you, less than a foot from my face. I didn't think. There was no decision. My body just left that chair. I jumped, completely missed the seat on the way down, hit the landing floor hard on my side. I felt the impact, but I didn't stop. I was up and moving before I even registered the pain. Down the stairs, hand dragging along the wall, through the hallway, out the kitchen door, down the side alley, and I was in the van with the doors locked before I'd taken a proper breath. I sat there with both hands on the steering wheel, staring at the front of the house. Nothing moved. Not a curtain, not a shadow. Nothing. I sat there for about 5 minutes. Then I drove to Bromley. I was 20 minutes late. Sarah answered the door, and I could see it on her face straight away, but she didn't say anything in front of her parents. I said sorry, walked in, sat down at the table. I kept my hands in my lap the whole evening, drank 3 glasses of her dad's wine, laughed when everyone else laughed, got through it. I didn't tell any of them what happened. I didn't know where I'd even start. Next morning, I called my manager, Dave, told him the property was insecure. I believed there was someone in the loft space. We needed police in there before anyone else went near it. He called me back about 2 hours later. His voice was quieter than normal. Sean, police went in this morning. They cleared the hatch. Did they find someone up there? Loft was completely empty. No bedding, no belongings, nothing at all. Dave, I heard someone. There was a padlock on the inside of that hatch. They found it, still locked. He went quiet for a second. But here's the thing. Police checked the roof structure of the building. It's a terraced block, 5 houses in a row. Arthur Vance's attic doesn't have a dividing brick wall between his property and the house next door. The loft space runs open across all 5 houses, the whole row. I didn't say anything. The couple at number 14, the house directly next door, police knocked on their door this morning. They said they'd been hearing scraping noises from their own ceiling hatch every single night for 4 months. They thought it was foxes getting in. Arthur Vance was never found. Nobody ever worked out who fitted that padlock on the inside. Nobody ever figured out how they got out. I left that job 3 weeks after that night. What I think about, what genuinely still sits with me, isn't something dramatic. It's just a simple thought. 5 houses in that row, 5 front doors, 5 families locking up every night thinking they're sealed in and safe, and 1 open loft running the full length of all of them, completely dark, completely unmonitored, for months. And whoever was living up there in that darkness, moving slowly through the space above 5 separate families, had been brushing their teeth.